Good day, folks. This is Bob in a new environment. My dad, as a young army officer, Sindh horse in my backdrop, giving me inspiration. What we have today is obviously the world's focus is essentially on Iran and Israel, the Middle East, right? It's important to note that some red lines have been drawn, and I think probably it may end up being in favor of Iran. I'll tell you why. And so here, what are the headlines that are coming out now? Is US distances itself from attack on Iran, says de-escalation top focus. Italy says Tel Aviv informed Washington last minute. Blinken won't admit, says no role. Then you have this, you said Iran hits Israel with missiles and drone an unprecedented strike. Tel Aviv says Tehran fired 170 drones, 30 plus cruise missiles and 120 plus ballistic missiles, but 99% of them intercepted. There is obviously talk that Iran informed America, America disclaimed, but there's some connection, it seems, the fact that the US was very clearly before the Iranian attack, it was warning that the attack is imminent, so they must have known something. And this is what's important. Bashir Ali Abbas. In West Asia, the game of deterrence has changed. Now, why has it changed? It's very important reading, right? On April 19th, US officials anonymously confirmed that Israel had executed a drone strike near Isfahan. Iran's response has been to downplay the strike, which can be characterized as Israel's response to the Iranian drone missile attack on Israel territory on April 30. While Iran and Israel have now both struck each other, the deterrence balance has effectively shifted in Iran's favor. Why? Because the retaliation by Israel was very clear, was not to escalate, right? Otherwise, it would have hit some major centers. It just like Iran did, so did Israel. At the end of it, Israel's red lines created a commitment trap, with Tel Aviv eventually seeking escalation control by not claiming the Isfahan strike. National Security Minister Ben Savir implicitly even termed the Israeli response lame, with Iran having thrown the plausible deniability approach out the window through its large drone missile strike. It is Israel that is staring at deterrence failures in the long run. Hence, instability in West Asia can only be expected to increase as Israel works to restore deterrence, even as the war in Gaza continues, now having killed almost 34,000. How many of them Israelis? We don't know. West Asia tension up, Iran launches missile strike, drones in Israel attack. After US, Europe urges Israel to show restraint over Iran's weekend barrage. Iran says it warned before strike. Untrue, says US, like I told you. Can't afford war. World urges Israel to back off. Indian officials allowed to meet crew of cargo ship held in Iran. So India, because it trades a lot and its presence in the Middle East and the Arabian Gulf, Indian sailors' international flights snared in West Asia crisis. Western intel sees possible use of suicide drones, cruise missiles. Russian oil and products trapped on tankers hit by Iran-related sanctions. This is another collateral damage, and India could be another one of those. Iran seizes Israel-linked ship with 17 Indians aboard. Concerned India calls for de-escalation. Jaishankar speaks with Foreign Minister of Iran and Israel. Release of 17 Indians on board ship seized by Iran discussed. West Asia conflict may cast shadow on India global economic impact seen on crude price, supply chain and inflation. Cautious investors brace for volatility, negative opening today, and won't back retaliation, US tells Israel clearly. And for Israel, no easy path to muscular response to Iran. Biden to Bibi. US will not take part in counter-offensive against Iran. G7 slams attacks, says it stands with Israel. Global powers urge restraint. Spectre of war rises in West Asia. World can't afford to be roiled by more conflicts. Israel and Iran must roll back their aggression. In the United States, anybody who thinks that Ukraine's gone, says Ukraine could lose war this year without aid, says CIA, but without aid. Europe has already promised $50 billion, on top of that, you have this US House advances Ukraine-Israel package after rare bipartisan show far-right fumes. But till you get to the bottom of this, or the root cause of the problem between Iran, the Middle East, and Israel, you have this. At the heart of Iran-Israel, the conflict makes it clear that peace in West Asia hinges on resolving Palestinian statehood, which obviously does. Says, like Iran, Israel's present government is radical and revisionist. It seeks to eliminate the possibility of a future Palestine state, thereby denying the people its right to self-determination. It wishes to create a greater Israel in the West Bank and engages in acts of repression of Palestinians and expropriation of their land. In so doing, Israel is allowing the Palestinian cause to fester, which generates radical and violent action, as we saw in the despicable acts of October 7, 2023, but also in many earlier attacks on Israel. Iran benefits from and encourages such deeds because it focuses attention on the injustice of Israel and the West towards the Palestinians, and this resonates deeply throughout the Arab and Islamic world and beyond. And unfortunately, Biden's got caught in the Netanyahu trap. But the world in the manifesto, the big drama, the big first phase is over in India. The collapse in election percentages actually in UP, Rajasthan, Bihar actually suggests that the Hindi Patti wave of the larger-than-life king has more or less vanished. The higher percentage in Bengal shows that much higher percentage and spike shows, especially in the area which was considered the BJP forte, shows change. Similarly, it shows more or less wipeout for them in Maharashtra. However, I'm not getting into that. What we have, this is Raja Mohan. The world is actually watching. And actually, I didn't know that there are some foreign agencies who also done opinion polls which are showing some disastrous numbers for the current power, right? The world in the manifesto, the consensus and continuity mark India's foreign policy is being challenged ahead of the election. It says the CPM, which pulled out of the UPA coalition in 2008 on the question of India's deepening ties with the US, has much to say on the subject a decade and a half later. Its manifesto declares that the BJP government has totally surrendered to US strategic political and security designs and to strengthen US imperialism's design for global hegemony. The CPM accused India of becoming subordinate ally of the US and abandoning India's traditional leadership of the non-aligned movement. The left's rejection of India's strategic partnership with the US, the Congress's critique of the government's China policy, and the collective lack of attention to Russia suggests how much the domestic political perception has changed in India's great power relations over the last decade. So Russia is more or less trashed, it seems. But what should worry us actually? Just remember, for the US, India's primacy, as I've always repeatedly said, is China. But now they think that we are waffling on China. Just especially the way our comments and how it started with just not acknowledging that that there is some land that is under occupation of the Chinese. Why China economy grew faster than expected, what lies ahead? But this is trouble for India. Why? Firstly, if their economy is truly growing faster, again it's going to put pressure on natural resources, which is going to put pressure on India's economy and its inflation. Second, the exports coming out of China will gather pace, and imports from the rest of the world going to China will ensure that suddenly China again has a bunch of people in all these countries which are going to be cheering for them. Right? If the Chinese threat were to disappear, then US and India wouldn't be nearly as friendly. It's like I've been saying all along. Who says this? This is by John Mearsheimer. Professor John Mearsheimer is a professor of political science at the University of Chicago. I've always said that. And why we continue to say this is Arunachal is and will remain part of Bharat, says PM. Okay, we think it's a strong statement, but is it really? Here it's basically saying part of Bharat. It actually probably is part of India because I think the scatography that happened, which got Arunachal into India, was done by the British. British called Bharat India, right? Anyway, the point of the matter is, when we refuse to acknowledge the threat And we only come back with homilies to China. China idle instinct, right? Especially when you say India not in infra race with China, BRO chief. Why would he say that? Say we are in the race. That's the bigger thing and tougher thing to say. But the economy, also because of China, is going to have a problem. Rupee hits new low of 83.54 as global tensions mount. Food inflation behind the rate pause in April. Exports to exports to Europe and US short of big gains amid flare-ups. Now this is how headlines are managed. What they're not showing is that exports have actually dropped. It says short of big gains, headline management. 2 killed as Manipur hostilities flare afresh. Now this is remember I told you last time that a guy who said can the elephant dance had mentioned that the biggest problem India has is neighbors in periphery because they're actually hostile. And you're beginning to see this. Now let's start with Manipur, and this affects our relationship with Myanmar. Government asked traders to speed up pulses import from Myanmar using forex. But then how do we, since we've tied hands and shook hands with the Janta, what do we do now? Myanmar Janta suffers another defeat at hands of resistance forces. Myanmar instability hits 2 crucial infra projects. Now, we have infra projects on this side being hit, we have infra, the IMEC being hit because of the Iran, Israel, Palestinian issue, and Maldives. Another on the periphery, lost. Suspended Maldivian minister mocks tricolor, apologizes after backlash. Maldives court frees jailed ex-president Yamin. India's bet noir. Now what do we do, right? A big supporter of the existing the existing president. Maldives signs deal with China for redeveloping airport. China was already there. I've been there so many times. What do you mean re-signs? I can't understand that. And this is the worry why you have to work. Bangladesh, we are having problems. They are saying throw India out. The reason why is that we supported Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina is almost all but destroyed democracy because there was a one-party Putin-style election this time. So people are against us. Myanmar, we have the same thing. Nepal. Maldives, we have the same thing with interference or whatever they say. Nepal cops use force on pro-monarchy protesters. RPP wants minister to quit. But here's the problem. Why the CPI-CPIM of Nepal is more cozy with China and not India? Because they fear India, and it's true, because the RSS, etc., wants this to be a Hindu kingdom, back to the monarchy. The people of Nepal don't want that. Funnily, they first hated India because the Congress helped the democracy take roots in Nepal. So I'm not sure how we're going to get over that, but obviously our policy as far as Nepal has been waffling. And then you have a problem in Pakistan. And AFPAC warning: the terror attack in Turbut, Dasau, Gwada are of Pakistan's own making. It needs a radical reorientation of policy. Pakistan has followed exploitative policies in Balochistan since its inception. China has become complicit in these policies over the years through its projects and has brought little benefit or employment opportunities to the local people. The Sendak copper gold project run by Chinese and construction activities in relation to the Gwada port are some examples. This has caused resentment against them amongst the local populace. So this kind of, in a sense, has quietened our Western Front down quite a bit. But won't be an easy ride. Let's get to Washington, the main player for us. It will be a year of living dangerously. The main challenge for the US and India in 2024 will be to stay focused on the relationship and manage the frictions while conducting that essential dance of democracy called national elections. And here we are finding trouble, right? Biden has an equally difficult challenge with illegal immigration. Too bad Indians have become part of the problem, with numbers soaring to over 96,000 last year. A hugely embarrassing statistic for a country moving to become a 4 trillion economy, and to say nothing about the state from which more than 300 chartered a plane to escape. In a Trump scenario, the issue could become a wall and a real problem in bilateral relations. This is Gujarat, right? Yes. And also because Taranjeet, who knew Washington, has gone. See ambassador. President Biden's Netanyahu burden. He says by allowing Israel to set an impossible war aim, ignoring humanitarian concerns, paint any criticism as anti-Semitic and risk a war, regional war, Joe Biden has made the biggest mistake of his political career. Biden has been America's most effective president of the century. He rescued American democracy, brought the country out of the pandemic, offered a new economic blueprint, has been internally inclusive and offered a methodical and thoughtful approach to several foreign policy questions. He may still win the next elections too, but by allowing his Israeli friends and a deeply unreliable and cynical friend at that to set American policy, he has made the biggest political mistake of his life. The only thing that is going to save is women, abortion. Already, if you guys don't know and don't follow American politics, there's a gap of 60-40 in the women voting opinions, right? And that's a big number. America's big rematch. Whatever the result of its election, the US is too diverse to allow one person to impose a radical political agenda. Trailing behind Trump in the key battleground states, Biden is taking gloves off to attack Trump as a threat to American democracy. Same thing is happening in India, funnily, right? Flip side of the same coin. What is important here is that the trial that is now ready to go has exposed Trump and made him a hate figure as far as the women are concerned, because all kinds of details are out there in the open about how he paid a hooker while his wife was having a baby and all that stuff. That's terrible stuff for a Christian country like the United States, right? Delhi, Washington grip tightens. We hope it stays tightened. The agenda for expanding bilateral commercial cooperation protects against these possibilities by promoting leadership in sectors of the future, strengthening resilience and enhancing the ability to confront strategic challenges. But there's fly in the ointment. Sullivan calls off India's trip amid West Asian crisis. New deal in statecraft boosts to India-US ties. This is written by Rudra Chaudhary. He says, ICET's transformative potential was never in doubt. On the first anniversary of its launch, both nations need to institutionalize its working. It still hasn't happened, and that's the problem, because talent on our side is limited. Biden's proudest work towards bolstering ties. He added that US saw its engagement with India as central to everything that Washington DC was seeking to do on the global stage. And I would simply say that I think in many respects it will be our most important bilateral partnership heading into the later part of the 21st century. But India has to play its role, right? India must heed these 4 American truths. Biden is good for Indian strategic interests, but Democrats don't like the BJP. Trump doesn't care about BJP politics, but will be more demanding and unpredictable, including on China. 2024 will show powers and limits of Indian Americans in US politics. It says, rise of Indian Americans stands in uneasy contradiction to the growth of anti-immigration sentiment and Christian conservatism. Thus, the outlook for Indian American political influence in 2024 and beyond will remain decidedly mixed, even as many more Indian Americans run for office, contribute to candidates and vote in elections. They will have to contend with political and social movements that envision a very different future for American political and policy. And so don't expect any Indians in power to be pro-Indian, right? Concerns spiral as other Indian students found dead in the US. Baltimore bridge collapses, FBI opens criminal probe, focus on cruise rules. See how he up went. Oh, Biden is congratulating the Indian crew. But this is the reality, folks. Criminal probe, trade push to top agenda of ties 3-day visit, US considers treaty country status for India, easier visas, will it? Ready to consider India's concerns over key business issues, USTRTAI, off old men and election scene. Dems too have burning issues to cinch Trump, such as abortion rights, more of that in the next installment of US election 2024. Biden steps up president campaign as Trump remains caught up in trial. There goes, and here, Putin's power play book has parallels elsewhere. Guess where else? Putin has become the father figure who protects the Russian state, the Russian people, and each Russian family. Variations of this father figure can be found in contemporary Turkey, India, and China. where the top leaders is also projected as having laid the foundation of a new nation. And that, folks, is what the Americans are seeing. And here, Austin, India, US jet engine deal is revolutionary. This is what deal we need to get to the next level of aviation, whether aircraft manufacturer, fighter aircraft. If we don't have it, all bets are off. 3 cheers, Jai Hind.